We've got a great show in store for you today. This is your one-stop shop for all things RLCS and Rocket League Esports. I'm your host, Wave Punk. We got a findable carpet here. How you doing, bud?
Pretty good, bud. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good, bud. We got two other people over here, Lawler, Gibbs. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Yeah.
This past weekend, man, long broadcast, so we got to break it all down.
Yeah, so much action to get into here. We'll get started off today. We're going to cover North America and Europe, and then we'll do some talking to Yummy Cheese Man about OCE. It'll be a great time. Starting with North America, the playoffs, the regional championships here. The first round, the quarterfinals, about getting into LAN, and the semifinals about getting into Season 2, or Season 4, rather. So we're going to start with the quarterfinals, starting off with Genesis versus Selfless. This is a match, all of these matches between NA and Europe, we didn't really know what to expect. Anything can happen in these days. Started off with Selfless coming out hot and knocking Genesis out easily 4-0.
And that was a big surprise because Selfless lost 3 games in a row, and then Genesis was 3-1 in their past 4. So Genesis coming in as the 4 seed, Selfless as the 5 seed. We thought this could be a coin toss, depending on how Genesis played. And honestly, Genesis did not look good all day.
Now, we talked a lot on the previous segment of Overtime that Genesis had been really ramping up towards the end of the season. Selfless had kind of felt like they cooled down. But as they had the week off to prepare, Selfless came in guns a-blazing, able to knock out Genesis pretty handily here for him.
I think a lot of it probably comes down to preparation. As we know, there is definitely some rifting that goes on through the Genesis roster. And I don't believe that they had enough time to really get enough scrims in to get the real practice in. And Selfless is a team that when they want to put their head down to the books and stick to the controllers, they're going to make sure they put in the time.
Well, the benefit to Selfless as well is they had a lot of time off. They didn't play in that last week, and then they had another week in between coming into this. So they had a lot of time to just sit down and figure out, okay, what do we need to do to win? A lot of their gameplay has been individual solo plays, and we saw a lot of team plays actually coming out for these guys, and they wiped the floor.
Yeah, I don't know if the issue with Genesis was lack of time to scrim. I think it was more just people not wanting to and the team having trouble coordinating. But moving on to the next one, G2 versus Denial. Everybody had high hopes for G2 coming into this, but again, a team that had seemed to have issues towards the end of the season, had multiple opportunities to qualify for LAN, were not able to pull it off, and then here they fall apart again.
It really it pains me to see and watch what happens when G2 starts to cave under pressure. It really comes down to, from what it seems like, Kronovi, when he knows he's under pressure and has to make a lot of moves, he tries to do a little bit too much. Maybe he reverts back to the good old days when he was just an untouchable god, and he just finds himself in some awkward places, and then his team tries to follow suit.
But at the same time, Canada, Team Canada comes out. No one expected them to beat G2. Sad Jr. getting his revenge on Kronovi. What a big series for them. He even had to go keyboard mouse in Game 5 towards the end. Got the overtime winner.
He got the winning goal as KBM.
Yeah, the other cool thing about it as well with these guys is like it was a Denial we had never seen before. Like last week when they played, we had a little bit of Corrupted G playing really good on offense, but everybody showed up. Lethamyr was actually finding the back of the net this week. Like everything was working for these guys, and it shows. Look at that box score. Lethamyr with 22 shots. Unbelievable.
And plus, just look, all 7 games. That's the first time we've seen a 7-game box score. That thing is huge. That's a lot of games that you have to play.
Yeah.
Sad, again, his controller DCs in Game 5. They actually tie the game 2v3 while he's trying to figure it out. Then he decides, I can only play keyboard mouse because he has to restart his entire computer. And so then there was a little bit of break before 6 and 7. Went all the way to 7. So close.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful to watch a team have technical issues like that on their end and still be able to pull it off. And you got to be hurting there for G2 as they're not able to get the win. And the question for you guys is, Genesis and G2, they're done for Season 3 right now. They're going to have to play in the qualifiers of Season 4. I feel like we know with Genesis that they're going to be going in separate ways. It's been pretty clear on Twitter that there's a lot of issues on that team. How do y'all feel about G2 and just roster changes in general? What are these two teams looking at in the offseason?
From what I've been seeing, G2 seems pretty confident that they will stick together as a 3-man group, but who knows? Like, we have the Brisk Summer Series, of course, coming in, and then who knows when Season 4 is? We'll see. That's a long break probably, so I could see Crow and Rizzo sticking together. JNaps, who knows? Maybe he'll flirt with some options, but I expect them to stay together. The only one I could see leaving is probably JNaps.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the team, and Kronovi did say it publicly, like, they put a lot of time in that downtime to practice scrims, and they thought they had everything figured out. They were really confident coming in. They're like, yep, none of these mistakes are happening. And Kronovi, that's something that's so respectable about him, is he's okay with admitting now that it was on me. Like, I made a ton of mistakes, and he said that publicly. So as long as they keep that captain at the helm and they're able to recognize the mistakes and work towards it, I don't see why they wouldn't stay together.
I mean, for me, whenever I'm watching a certain roster, if there's 1 week where I just see them dominate everybody, that means they can do it, right? Like, once you see the potential of it, like, all right, now you got to figure out what clicked, what made you so good that game, what did you read your opponents with? Even if their opponent wasn't too great, any of these teams in their like not so great week is still a difficult team, right? So to be able to just thrash through anybody, I think G2, we know they have the potential. Individually, you look at any of those players, they're going to be top NA. They're going to be somebody we're going to talk about no matter what team we see them on soon. So it's just a matter of, can they make sure that, especially Kronovi, 2 years in a row, we've seen him fall, and I'm glad to see him stick with it, but it's got to be rough.
I wonder if the issue, like we said, in their first doubleheader week in the regular season, it looked amazing. G2 looked unstoppable. So we know that these guys can play well together. Maybe the issue isn't, I don't think the issue is the players. Maybe if they had, an analyst or coach of some sort who can like watch them overhead and kind of give them some advice on ways to play, that might help them. But moving on to the semifinals, NRG versus Atelier, or not versus Atelier, NRG and Atelier had already qualified, so Selfless, after beating Genesis, went on to play NRG. It was a nice long series, going the full distance of 7 games as well, but NRG able to pull out the win.
And this was the big surprise. Selfless coming out 2-0 from the start, just keeping that. They won 6 games in a row, 4 versus Genesis, then 2 versus NRG. Then NRG finally started to wake up, but they went down 3-1, had to battle all the way back and win it in 7.
That's what scares me about NRG as well, is if they start slow like that in the LAN, they're going to put themselves in a position that's very difficult. They need to find a way to ramp up, and a lot of it did have to do with Selfless coming in with a couple games already under their belt. But once they got the ball rolling, you see what this team of NRG is so touted as why they're #1. Like, they're so difficult to play against because of everybody on the team with the potential. Garrett's been having to sit back a lot on defense, but he was able to make some plays up top, and then it opened up even more for this team. Jacob being a little bit more quiet.
Yeah, with the win here, NRG qualified for the championship for the 3rd season in a row. Well, I don't want to spoil it. If you saw it, we'll talk about it here in about 10 minutes, and then we'll spoil it. That's kind of what the show's about. But NRG in 7 games, and one thing you point out, if they were to start off slow, best of 5s that get played in the beginning of LAN, you can see like Selfless would have won this if it had been a best of 5. They were winning it in game 4 there. So a big deal. The best of 7 gives you rooms for error here, and NRG took advantage of that on the road to the finals. But Selfless still a very deadly team, as we'll see them later in the 3rd place match.
It's just the trading back and forth. Look at that. Game 3, 6-2 in favor of NRG, and then they get stomped 0-4. It's that kind of inconsistency that we see kind of just throughout all of the RLCS. Some teams just trading back and forth, and sometimes like you just got to give up the game and move forward.
Yep. Now, Atelier versus Denial on the other side. Again, Atelier came in 2nd during the regular season play, so that they got a bye into the semifinals, and they faced off against the team that had just beaten G2. Atelier able to take it in 5 games.
For a team that got into the finals and into LAN by circumstance, they sure as heck did not look like it. They were playing very well, and it has to do a lot. Sizz really stepped up this weekend. He really did a lot for his team. But it's always been Matt, so very close to hitting that MVP himself, but he played like an MVP with this entire team at his back.
Oh, but that game 2 was so big for them. They were down 1-0, then they were down 2-0. They came all the way back to win that one, and then they just dominated after that. A 5-1 win, then a 6-1 win. So they were really just going off at that point. And then it kind of seemed like Denial, there's a reason why they were a 6 seed, and Atelier showed why they were a 2 seed here.
I mean, look at how large that number is. You really rarely see 2 games back-to-back winning, one by 4 goals, another by 5 goals. They really were showcasing it, and this is a roster that I personally, I've always talked about them. Atelier was the team I really suspected would make it this far, but they do well when they have the confidence. Notice the moment that they know they're in LAN, like, you know what, we've hit the goal of the season, we know where we are, and then you just watch them just dominate for this series.
Yeah, and with this win here, Atelier qualifies for the Grand Finals of North America, and both NRG and Atelier now have qualified for Season 4. This is a huge deal because, as we've talked about a number of times, players hate playing in the qualifiers. It's the most nerve-wracking part of the season, so they get to skip those qualifiers, and it's huge, especially for Atelier, who does not have an organization. This means that the orgs can look at Atelier and be like, oh, they're going to play in the finals, and we have a guaranteed 5 weeks of league play next season that these guys get to wear our label on the biggest scene of Rocket League. Huge for them, and NRG getting to play for that championship a 3rd season in a row.
And plus, that's extremely important for us.
Right.
Because Atelier, no one wants to say that name. They didn't even know how to pronounce their name. So I'm just really excited to see an org try and pick them up so we don't have to say it ever again.
Well, also, just think about them sitting there, knowing they'd have to play against the winner of G2 Denial, and then they get Denial. Like, there's another circumstantial situation they found themselves in. I guarantee you they 100% expected to see G2. We all expected to see G2 there just because of what they've done. And all of a sudden they're like, wait, we're about to play Denial? To be in Season 4, like that must have really just thrown them for a loop.
Sure, and especially because Denial had beat them during the regular season. Denial had a history of winning against Atelier, Atelier, Attila the Hun, whatever they're called.
I mean, that's what Lethmir said in his interview. In his interview, he's like, we've never lost to them. We've got this in the bag. And then Atelier comes out and goes, you sure? Like, you want to talk about when it comes up, when it matters the absolute most, that ease of pressure, and it's something that Turtle's always kind of struggled with as well. As well-spoken as he is, he's always had troubles in times of that kind of pressure. There's something that he's been kind of the foothold for his team in the aspect of when emotions and stuff get high, he's the one that has to bring it all together and square them away. And when you have all this other pressure coming in, and now it's just like, you know what, we can focus on playing our game. We can really focus on just do our best. That's it. Have a good time and really do our best. Even if we don't, doesn't matter. We're still going to see you in Season 4. That's fantastic, and I'm really scared for teams that have to play that team at LAN.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and talking about teams that play teams at LAN, Selfless versus Denial was our 3rd place match here. Selfless getting the win in 5 games, I believe it was, to get it. No, it was in 7 games. I'm sorry. Wrote that one down wrong there. So they went the full distance, but with this win here, this means that Denial, as the 4th place seed from Europe, has to face off against one of the OCE teams. They basically have to play an extra round compared to everybody else, which is, you know, we go back and forth on here about what is OCE going to do. We'll talk about that later with Yummy Cheeseman as well. But Denial is one of the teams who will be facing off against one of the top teams from OCE. How do you guys feel that will affect them?
Plus, it'll be the #1 team from OCE because Europe won the last LAN, so that's why they get the bonus of playing the #2 seed from OCE. And we'll see with Denial. It's weird because there's 2 different like pressure systems going on where the OCE, the #1 seed is going to have that whole region behind them, but that puts a lot of pressure behind them as well. And then for North America, like no North America team wants to lose to a lesser region. Sure. So that's a lot of pressure for a 4 seed to try and keep that alive.
Also with the team they would have never played against. There's a huge aspect of just not really well understanding how they're going to approach the field. Are they a quick team? Are they not? And if you're not a team that can adapt mid-series, which we just see some teams lack. Like they show up game 1 and they're just flat the whole series, and then all of a sudden the next series, you know, in league play when they have 2 back-to-back, they just all of a sudden figure it out, right? Mid-series, a lot of people can't really change their mentalities, and some people strive at it. So if you're not a team that can do that, you would struggle against a team who you have no idea what you're up against.
The slogan of Season 3 was new challengers, old rivals, right? And the OCE is the definition of the new challengers. We've never played these guys in a LAN situation, so how it's going to go, we don't know. Denial's going to have to come in with their A game to play off against OCE. I'm excited to see how that will pan out. But our grand finals for North America was NRG versus Atelier. And the big story was, can NRG do it 3 seasons in a row? Can they be the only team that has ever been the North American champion? The answer was yes.
And we knew that basically after game 1, a 6-1 victory. And it was basically solo play after solo play from NRG, just destroying someone from Atelier. And it was always someone different. Jake up here with a dunk over Sizz, and it was just, it was a little gross.
And it was just fun. I mean, on my computer, I could see a little bit of chat, and I could see them all having some fun. Even Atelier was making fun of each other. I think somebody missed an easy save, and then you saw Matt pick on his own teammate. They were clearly just having a good time, and I'm curious to know if they had felt good about their day. They just went in with positive attitudes, but NRG just came with more fire.
I mean, we said earlier, they had already won so much. They had made it into LAN, they had made it into the top 2 seeds, they have a great seed going into LAN, and they had qualified for Season 4. These guys had already done so much. The money, as we've said a number of times, almost just like icing on the cake at this point.
I mean, that's the energy that you have to respect, though. Like, when you look, and that's why people over the pond are like, okay, NRG is a team that we actually have to look at. And a lot of the EU teams kind of brush us aside over here in NA, but they play in that midfield passing play style where it looked like they were just being cocky with it almost. Like
Sure. I mean,
they're like, okay, look at this pass play. There's 4 passes. Do you really need all of them?
Yeah,
and they're like,
dude, it was a complete stomping here. They outscored them 16-2. We saw Atelier
hurts,
scoring
man.
games 1 and game 4, getting shut out in the middle 2. Atelier just completely getting manhandled. And NRG, like, who is going to stop these guys right now? 3-time North American champions.
Plus, Carpet was saying they were having fun, but there's only so much fun that you can have when you're outscored 16-2.
Yeah.
And it did look like it was just an outclass right there. And this is why it's so important when we go to Europe, where Europe does not want to have that 4 seed, because it seems like that's the one team you have to watch out for right now. And honestly, like, it all comes down to that for Europe. Like, a 3 seed maybe can beat Atelier because you have 2 brand new players going into a LAN. You have Turtle, who's a rock, but Matins is completely new, so
Sure.
we'll see how that goes.
Sure, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how these guys play off again. It will be the first time they have played as a team on the main stage there at LAN. But we can look at the bracket, just the recap of what happened. Guys, what was y'all's favorite match of the day from Saturday?
I mean, that's extremely easy. G2 Esports versus Denial. That match was a lot of fun. The keyboard mouse goal for Game 5
so
overtime. That's a pretty easy one there, and G2 getting upset and is out.
well, I mean, not only that, but look at the storyline. You're talking about Sad Jr. versus Kronovi. Like, who doesn't want to see that? You talk about implications in people who have been to the LAN before. What better storyline than a Sarpvet that gets to go to all 3 LANs now?
Yeah,
Congrats to Sad Jr.
The Twitter was hilarious. You saw people being like, you don't have to even be, if you're not watching the show, just look at Twitter and you know something's going down. And it's like Jacob tweeting like, are you serious? And everybody's like, OMG and everything, because G2's losing to Denial. Amazing. You can see the money that these guys were playing for. $10,000 going to NRG, $6,500 to Atelier, and then the rest panned out there. But again, we've said a number of times, it's about the story, it's about the pride at this point. NRG, the only team, in 3 seasons, we've had 1 North American champion. The story next season is going to be like, who's going to dethrone them? Is it ever going to happen? They've already set a record here.
But the story is also, in 3 weeks, will they win their round 1 matchup?
Yeah.
Because they still haven't done that yet. They've
Right.
always lost to the European 4 seed, so we'll see if they can finally break that curse. And the highest they finished is 5th. So they had 1 5th and 1 last place, a 7th. So they're really hoping for a top 4, probably top 2, and of course, like, they want to win, but they really have to show up when it matters most.
Yep, all eyes on NRG. Can they break the curse? Can they get the wins on the LAN stage? We will find out soon. But before we go and talk about Europe, let's look at the top 5 plays from North America. Over to you, Leaf.
Thanks, Wave. That's right, we are going to. Now, I've always had the coolest toys on the block. Might be some deeper psychological problems there, like validation, but I'm going to share one of them with you right now, this giant screen. You know what that means? It means top 5 plays, excitement. We're going to get into them before this jacket blinds you guys. And what better way to start it off than number 5? Turtle is going to be the one to set us off. He's going to be representing Atelier. And Atelier, well, we know how well they did. Turtle is going to make sure to show you exactly what you shouldn't do, and that's try to have a gun duel with him. He rocks one of the fastest and most precise shots we've seen in a while, and that pass came in faster than Sultan replaced Panda during the last seconds of their series that last Sunday. Now, he had a teammate in the past, but Garrett's like, I'm going to do a little bit better. Coming in at number 4, something you'll never see in solo standard, a beautiful passing play. You think this was Team Canada instead of Denial, as they both said, no, sorry, you take the goal points. We had fire to Garrett to fire, over to Garrett again. And now if I'm sounding like a broken record here, that's appropriate, because Sizz had his turntables all riggedy whacked. Now Chrome's going to get credit for number 3, but we can't forget about Insole. Definitely one not to forget, as he hangs in the air after a double commit, manages to incredibly get a pass. He must have upgraded his Batmobile, because he's looking like Michael Jordan getting so much hang time, and his buddy Chrome with the Kobe. Now, Garrett wasn't done with the top plays, and coming in 4th and 2nd, manages to spark up some offense as Fireburner sends a perfectly placed pass. Garrett graciously grabs a goal with furious faith, securing a splendid explosion. He sets the scoreboard against Selfless in their favor. The faith behind this is just incredible, and I love to see these passing plays come out from all these teams, and that's what most of our top plays are about. But Jacob, once again, the Cobb is on the job, and by no means is this janitorial work. Greeting that ball in the air like an angry parent, he sends that ball for a timeout in the corner, and when that ball doesn't want to listen, he sends it straight to bed with no dinner. Reading a corner roof bounce like that ain't easy. And let's just say, hashtag Jacob things, and as Carpet said, just look at that. Jacob has been performing fantastically this season, and a lot of people have, including people in Europe. We're gonna go to a break, grab some drinks, some popcorn. We come back, we got that EU recap.